The Galactic Concord Chamber was not built for urgency. It was a cathedral of permanence, arched rings of black alloy floating in perfect symmetry, starlight refracted through crystalline panels older than most civilizations. Every species present had shaped the galaxy for thousands of years, and the chamber reflected that confidence. Nothing here was designed to change quickly. Nothing, except humanity. They stood at the lowest tier of the circular hall, not by rank but by tradition. New species always stood below the elders. The humans did not protest. They never did. That restraint unsettled the others more than shouting ever could. High Arbiter Zalthlin drifted forward, his elongated form wrapped in ceremonial grav fields. His voice carried without effort, amplified by technology so ancient it was indistinguishable from magic. "The matter before the Concord," he said, "is not human existence. It is human expansion." A ripple of agreement passed through the chamber. On the central display, images rotated: human ships, human colonies, human fleets modifying alien designs with alarming speed. A war fought 40 cycles earlier replayed in fragments, humans retreating, adapting, returning with altered tactics that dismantled a superior force. Zalthlin's eyes narrowed. They learned too quickly. A delegate from the Threx Collective clicked its mandibles. They were given trade access. Within 2 generations, they reverse-engineered propulsion methods our species refined over millennia. Another voice followed, colder. They improvise during battle. They do not adhere to doctrine. That, more than anything, was the true charge. Humans did not fight wars the way the galaxy expected. They did not treat technology as sacred or static. They dismantled, repurposed, rebuilt. Loss was not failure to them, it was data. At the lower tier, Ambassador Mara Ilias listened without interruption. She kept her hands folded, her expression neutral. The humans behind her mirrored the posture. Calm. Attentive. Watching. Zalthlin turned his attention downward at last. "Humanity has been granted access, protection, and opportunity," he said. "In return, you have destabilized regional power balances, accelerated arms races, and provoked conflicts beyond your scale." Mara raised her head. "We defended ourselves." "You won," Zalthlin replied sharply. "Against forces that should have overwhelmed you." A pause followed. Not an awkward one. A thoughtful one. "We adapt," Mara said simply. "That is not aggression." Murmurs swept the chamber. Adaptation was not a virtue among the elders. Stability was. A projection flared to life, predictive models this time. Future paths. In every scenario where humanity retained unrestricted access to space, the same pattern emerged: rapid expansion, technological divergence, influence outpacing elder species within a few centuries. Zalthlin let the image linger. "This council exists to preserve balance," he said. "Humanity threatens that balance, not through malice, but through momentum." Silence settled like dust. Then the vote began. One by one, ancient species cast their decisions. Not with anger. Not with fear, they would admit. With caution sharpened into finality. When it ended, the result glowed in the air. Unanimous decree: humanity's interstellar access revoked. Mara exhaled slowly. Around her, no one spoke. Zalthlin's voice softened, almost conciliatory. "This is not extermination. Your worlds remain yours. Your species may endure, within its assigned boundaries. FTL lanes will be sealed," another arbiter added. "Trade suspended. Shared research revoked. Isolation, carefully dressed as mercy." Mara met Zalthlin's gaze. "For how long?" The arbiter hesitated. "Indefinitely." That word carried more weight than any weapon. She nodded once. "Then we will leave." There was no appeal. No threat. No promise of revenge. As the human delegation turned away, a junior counselor leaned toward Zalthlin and whispered, "They're taking this, well." Zalthlin watched the humans depart. "They always do," he said. "At first. The jump gates closed across human space within a standard cycle. Hyperspace corridors collapsed into nothing. Beacons went dark. Fleets that once crossed star systems in days found themselves caged within local light. From the Concorde's perspective, it was elegant, clean, humane. From humanity's perspective, it was the end of a chapter they had never intended to be permanent. On Earth, the announcement played across every network. There was outrage, fear, grief, but beneath it all, something quieter took root. A resolve shaped not by pride, but by necessity. Human scientists gathered in sealed labs. Engineers revisited abandoned theories. Physicists stared at equations once dismissed as impossible because they were inefficient. Efficiency was a luxury now. Years passed. Then decades. Humanity did not fracture. It condensed. Without alien trade, they rebuilt supply chains. Without shared tech, they redesigned fundamentals. When FTL was forbidden, they stopped trying to punch through hyperspace corridors, and started asking why spacetime bent at all. The Concorde watched for signs of collapse. They saw none. A century later, a clerk marked humanity as non-responsive, and moved the file into archival storage. A minor species, quietly extinguished by isolation. In the vastness beyond mapped space, no one noticed a data fragment humanity had carried away from the council chamber, an incomplete gravitational model, overlooked because it was theoretically useless. Humans did not see a flaw. They saw an opening. And far from the eyes of the galaxy, in a region long dismissed as empty, the first star was moved. The Galactic Concorde mistook quiet for victory. For the first few decades after the ban, human space was watched closely. Observation arrays tracked old colonies orbit by orbit. Long-range probes listened for unauthorized hyperspace signatures. Analysts expected desperation, smuggling attempts, broken treaties, maybe even a reckless charge against sealed gates. None came. Human ships stayed home. Their beacons remained dark. Communications dwindled to internal chatter the Concorde could barely intercept, then vanished altogether. By the 50th year, the surveillance budget was quietly reduced. Isolation worked, one counselor declared during a routine session. Their expansion halted. No one argued. There was nothing to argue with. The Concorde turned its attention back to itself, which was exactly where it preferred to look. Time passed differently for the elder species. Decades blurred together, marked only by ceremonial cycles and leadership rotations that changed little beyond titles. Their fleets remained immaculate. Their technologies remained refined, but unchanged. Why improve perfection? High Arbiter Zalthlin rose higher than ever. Stability was his legacy. Under his rule, borders hardened, doctrines froze, and innovation slowed to a crawl disguised as tradition. Humanity became a footnote. In the Concorde archives, their designation shifted from restricted to inactive. A junior archivist paused over the classification, claws hovering. Inactive isn't extinct, she noted. Southland dismissed it with a gesture. It will be. No one saw the need to check again. Humanity, meanwhile, did not experience silence the same way. Without alien markets, scarcity forced efficiency. Without shared technology, every assumption was re-examined. Entire disciplines collapsed and reformed. Physics departments merged with engineering. Astronomers stopped mapping stars and began questioning gravity itself. The problem was simple and absolute: humanity was trapped. Hyperspace gates were sealed beyond their reach. Conventional FTL drives required infrastructure they no longer had access to. The galaxy had become a locked room. So they stopped trying to open the door. Instead, they studied the walls. Gravitational inconsistencies, once ignored as cosmic noise, became points of obsession. Dark matter wasn't treated as a mystery anymore, but as raw material. Black holes were no longer hazards, they were anchors. Progress was slow at first. Painfully so. Entire generations worked on theories that failed. Prototypes collapsed under their own mass. Experiments consumed stars and yielded nothing usable. Humanity learned to endure failure again. Then one equation worked. Not perfectly. Not safely. But it bent space-time by intention rather than accident. A localized distortion, small enough to measure, large enough to repeat. That moment never reached the Concorde. Humanity stopped broadcasting breakthroughs long before that. 70 years after the ban, the black halo stirred. It was an unremarkable region by every known metric, a void where early probes had failed, where gravity misbehaved and navigation systems drifted into error. The Concorde had charted it centuries earlier, labeled it unstable, and moved on. So when a monitoring station logged a faint gravitational ripple near its edge, no one sounded an alarm. Background fluctuation, the station's overseer said, signing off the report. Probably stellar drift. The data was archived. A year later, the ripple returned. This time, it curved light. The automated system flagged the anomaly, but its urgency rating remained low. There were no ships. No emissions. No energy spikes that matched known weapons or engines. Just a subtle, persistent distortion, like space itself was being adjusted by invisible hands. A junior analyst forwarded the file up the chain. Probably a sensor artifact, his supervisor replied. Run diagnostics and close it. Diagnostics returned clean. The distortion remained. In the Concorde chamber, the matter finally surfaced during a routine briefing, buried beneath trade figures and border disputes. A minor anomaly has been detected in the black halo, an aide announced, projecting the data. No known cause. Zalthwin regarded the warped starlight with mild curiosity. The halo has always been unstable. Yes, Arbiter, the aide said. But this fluctuation shows intentional symmetry. That word lingered. Intentional. How large? Zalthwin asked. Expanding, the aide replied. Slowly. The chamber murmured, more annoyed than alarmed. Space did strange things all the time. Natural phenomena didn't require emergency councils. Still, Zalthwin ordered observation. Send passive probes, he said. No fleet. The probes vanished at the halo's edge, not destroyed, but lost. Their signals stretched, elongated, then dissolved into static. That earned attention. A second wave was launched, hardened against interference. They returned partial data before failing, gravity behaving in layers, mass readings without corresponding matter, stars forming where none should ignite. Artificial symmetry. Zalthwin felt a faint unease creep into his thoughts. No civilization operates there, he said. Correct? The chamber confirmed it. No hyperspace lanes. No habitable systems. No recorded life. Then what is shaping it? Someone asked. Silence answered. Beyond the halo, humanity watched the probes approach and adjusted parameters. Concorde sensors are improving, an engineer noted. They'll notice soon. They were always going to, replied Admiral Elias Crow, standing before a projection of spiraling equations and forming stars. We're past the point of hiding. A scientist glanced up. Are we ready? Crow studied the expanding structure, a newborn galaxy held together by forces no elder civilization had dared attempt. We didn't build this to stay invisible, he said. We built it to survive. The room hummed with restrained energy. No cheering. No speeches. Just people who had spent a century preparing for this moment. Back in Concorde space, the black halo pulsed again, stronger this time. Gravity surged in measurable waves. Light bent into deliberate arcs. A sensor officer stared at the readout, throat dry. This isn't random, she whispered. It's growing. Zalthwin straightened, ancient instincts finally stirring. Prepare a reconnaissance fleet, he ordered. Full observation protocols. As the chamber mobilized, no one voiced the thought forming in all their minds. Whatever waited inside the black halo had not emerged by accident. And if it was human, then humanity had not gone extinct. They had been busy. The Concorde's fleet moved like a river of steel, each ship gleaming under artificial starlight. Centuries-old hulls reflected centuries of confidence, of control. Discipline was absolute. Doctrine was unquestioned. The High Arbiter's words echoed across the bridges: observe, do not engage. And yet, as the vessels approached the black halo, unease settled like dust in zero gravity. The outer sensors went first. Readings fluctuated, stretching and twisting. Gravity didn't just pull, it tugged sideways, as if the very fabric of space were rearranging itself. Engineers scrambled at consoles, recalibrating instruments that were supposed to be infallible. "This is impossible," muttered a Threx officer, his claws clattering against the console. "Mass readings are artificial. Stars where none should exist." High Arbiter Zalthan's elongated form leaned over the main viewport. His voice was calm, but the words were tight with strain. "Report." A young human-looking holographic officer, standard reconnaissance AI and humanoid projection, spoke. "The halo is forming. Mass is coalescing into structures with intentional geometry. It appears engineered." The council members exchanged uneasy glances. The halo had been a void for millennia. Nothing could survive there. Nothing should form. Yet before them, stars were aligning in spirals, arcs bending with deliberate elegance. Southland's hand rested on the console. "A civilization capable of this. It would be advanced beyond anything we catalogued." "Advanced?" another voice interjected. "Or reckless?" The fleet pressed forward. Light warped unnaturally, flickering as if passing through lenses invisible to the eye. Sensors began returning distorted images, arcs of energy, stars in impossible arrangements, gravity wells where no matter existed. Then the human fleet appeared. It was silent at first, a line of ships emerging from the distortions, perfect formation, weapons stowed, engines glowing softly. Nothing in the Concorde's records predicted this level of coordination. They were not attacking. They were waiting. Crow's flagship hovered at the front, larger than any Concorde vessel in presence if not in mass. Its hull was unfamiliar, angular yet elegant, humming with low-frequency energy that bent light around its edges. The captain's bridge was quiet. Calm. Calculating. High Arbiter Zalthan's eyes narrowed. They survived. They adapted. But this is deliberate. A junior officer spoke quickly, voice trembling. "Sir, identification confirms humans. They should not exist in this sector. Your orders were absolute." They are human," Zalthan said, cutting him off. "And they do not require our gates or our mercy. Continue." On the bridge of the human flagship, Admiral Elias Crow regarded the approaching Concorde fleet through a viewport that simulated the surrounding space. A projection flickered beside him, a scale model of the galaxy they had built. Spiral arms rotating, stars stabilizing, energy flows balancing perfectly. "They see the outer layer," Crow said softly. "Let them. No surprises yet." A tactical officer asked. "Shall we engage?" Crow shook his head. "We engage only what threatens us. Observation does not." His tone carried the quiet confidence of centuries, patience honed into power. "They think this is a threat. Let them think. Let them fear. That is enough." Back in the Concorde fleet, Zalthan transmitted a message. His voice was authoritative, a tone honed over 3 centuries. "Humans! Identify yourselves. State your intentions." The silence stretched. Then calm, measured, unmistakable. "You locked us out of your galaxy. We adapted. This is the result." No threat. No plea. No hesitation. Just the simple fact of existence. The council members froze. The words carried weight, and the calm delivery suggested centuries of preparation. "Interpretation?" a voice whispered. Zalthan's expression darkened. "They are not asking for pardon. They are presenting evidence, proof that we misjudged them." The black halo itself seemed to respond. Gravity waves pulsed outward, subtle but undeniable. Light curved around invisible nodes, stars illuminating previously empty space. Ships in the Concorde fleet shivered in their orbits. Sensors flagged anomalies that no protocol could explain. They are manipulating space-time, a senior engineer stammered. All readings indicate deliberate architecture. Architecture, Southland repeated, voice tight. They do not need our permission. They have built something impossible. Crow's voice came over the comms again, soft, unhurried. We are not here to conquer. We are not here to beg. We exist. That is all you need to know. The fleet's reactions varied. Some vessels attempted recalibration, others tried distance maneuvers. Southland motioned for all to hold position. The humans had not moved aggressively. Yet the raw power they wielded, structuring stars, bending gravity, rendered conventional strategy useless. Crow walked along the bridge, eyes scanning energy flow projections. Each star, each gravitational node, each pulse of energy had a purpose. A network, not a fleet. Their technology was integrated into the very fabric of the galaxy they were building. Status? Crow asked. A technician replied. They are confused. They are unsure if this is natural or artificial. Crow nodded. Let them remain unsure. Do not clarify until they ask directly. Observation is a weapon itself. The Concorde fleet shifted uneasily. Arcs of light bent around the human ships. Gravity wells pulsed unpredictably. Engines strained against subtle forces they could not measure. The fleet, centuries strong, felt fragile. High Arbiter, a counselor whispered, almost too softly. If this is human technology, we are outclassed. Southland stared through the viewport. Centuries of experience offered no solution. This was not mere survival. This was civilization mastered and elevated beyond expectation. Prepare for full observation, he said finally. We will learn what we can. We cannot underestimate them. Crow's calm transmission arrived again, almost casual. You see our galaxy. You see our fleet. You see that we did not perish. We did not seek revenge. We only persisted. And in that moment, Southland understood. Humanity had not only survived isolation, they had transformed it. Every restriction, every ban, every dismissal had become fuel. The black halo was not a prison, it was a crucible. And from it, humanity had emerged not broken, but stronger. The Concorde fleet, masters of the known galaxy, now approached a force beyond comprehension. Not an enemy. Not a conqueror. A species that had rewritten the rules entirely. And for the first time in millennia, the High Arbiter felt the uncertainty that came with observing something truly unstoppable. Prepare full-scale probes, he ordered, his voice steady but taut. We must know the extent of what they have done. Crow remained on the bridge, silent, observing the incoming fleet, aware that every calculation the Concorde made was already outdated. Humanity had not returned to ask for permission. They had returned to be witnessed. And witnessing, Southland would discover, was far more terrifying than war. The Concorde fleet held its formation, trembling at the edge of a reality it had never prepared for. What they faced was not chaos. It was precision. It was order beyond comprehension. It was humanity. High Arbiter Southland's voice reverberated across the bridges. They are not attacking. Yet every protocol fails. Sensors cannot predict their moves. Our fleet is obsolete. A junior officer whispered. Obsolete. Sir? Outclassed. Southland corrected, voice tight. By what should be inferior. From the halo, human ships drifted silently into new positions. Engines shimmered with low-frequency fields that warped light around them. Weapons systems remained stowed, energy grids pulsed, and artificial gravity stabilized the surrounding distortions. Every movement was calculated, deliberate. Observation alone carried authority. Admiral Elias Crow's voice cut through the comms, calm, unhurried, devoid of aggression. High Arbiter, you have watched us for centuries and assumed extinction. You have claimed superiority. You have deemed your rules eternal. Observe, now, what patience and persistence create. The words echoed in silence across Concorde command decks. The counselors stared at their readouts. No protocol could classify the galaxy they had built. Dyson-lit stars rotated within spiraling arms of energy, connected by engineered gravity currents. Fleets could navigate freely, warp safely, and manipulate stellar mechanics as easily as a Concorde cruiser performed a standard formation maneuver. "This is not possible," muttered one officer. "This is engineering at a galactic scale." Crow's projection flickered in response, displaying subtle nodal points across the halo. "Your fleets, your defenses, your doctrines, all of them assume stability, predictability. We rewrote it. Without war. Without annihilation. Only adaptation?" Southland's voice hardened. "Explain your intent. Why have you constructed this?" A pause. The calm authority in Crow's tone made the chamber uneasy. "We did not construct it for you. We did not seek conquest. We built it to survive, to endure, to exist without asking for permission. That is our intent. The rest is yours to interpret." The Concorde fleet tensed. Engines hummed nervously as if aware of their own inadequacy. Probes sent forward returned data warped beyond recognition. Even the fastest calculations could not anticipate the next gravitational shift. "Admiral Crow," Southland said, almost pleading, "you have power beyond precedent. Stand down and negotiate. We can provide terms. You do not need to escalate." Crow's reply was unwavering. "We have never needed your terms. We do not seek your approval. Humanity has endured exile, isolation, suppression. We will endure still. We do not negotiate existence. We define it." Every word struck like a calculated strike. Not a threat but a truth. Concorde officers felt the weight of centuries of assumed control crumble under the force of a species they had underestimated. A young analyst spoke quietly, almost to herself. We can't fight them. Not like this. Our weapons, everything is obsolete." "How?" Southland's eyes narrowed. "Because we assumed predictability. Because we assumed limitation. Because we never considered that a species could learn, adapt, and then surpass." The halo pulsed in response. Gravity waves radiated outward, bending light, shifting fleet positions without direct interaction. Human ships held steady, each pulse measured. No energy was wasted. No system mismanaged. Everything was designed to demonstrate capability without hostility. Crow walked along the command deck, eyes tracing the grid of stars, engines, and nodal points. Each placement represented decades of planning, a century of ingenuity, a civilization unbound. "Do they understand?" asked a tactical officer. "They will," Crow said. "But understanding is not their choice. They perceive the consequences before comprehension. That is enough." Back in the Concorde chamber, panic began to ripple. Fleets were immobilized not by attack, but by the realization of inadequacy. Political advisors whispered warnings. The council fractured under the weight of the revelation. Species that once projected control now struggled to process the magnitude of human innovation. Southland attempted authority, voice sharper now. "You will submit. You will accept terms or—" Crow interrupted, calm as always. "We will not submit. We will not accept. Your galaxy is yours if you wish. We do not claim it. We only exist. We do not need your stars. We made better ones." The silence was absolute. Concorde ships shifted slightly, hesitant, as if space itself had become an extension of Crow's will. Every protocol, every plan, every assumption was rendered null by a species that had transcended expectation. A counselor finally spoke aloud, voice trembling. "If what they say is true, we cannot contain them. Not with fleets. Not with diplomacy. Not with authority. Then we watch," Southland said, voice hollow. "We observe. We adapt if possible. We do not interfere." Crow's fleet began to retreat, moving deeper into the halo they had mastered. Each vessel drifted without haste, leaving behind a galaxy reshaped, a legacy inscribed in the curvature of spacetime itself. Before disappearing entirely, Crow transmitted one final message. We do not reclaim what was never ours to hold. We only protect what we create. You may continue in your galaxy. We will continue in ours. And in time, we will be seen, not as subjects, not as rebels, but as equals no one anticipated. The Concorde fleet watched the human ships vanish into the engineered stars. Silence stretched across the chamber. The counselors, the officers, even Zalthlin himself, stared at the empty space left behind. It was not the absence of humanity that weighed upon them. It was the presence they had finally realized they could not control. Centuries of assumed dominance were meaningless. Every calculation, every doctrine, every prediction had failed. And for the first time, the galaxy understood that humanity had never needed permission. Crow's last projection lingered in the minds of those who observed it, a galaxy pulsing with life, energy, and design, each element precise, deliberate, eternal. A species that did not shout or threaten, yet could not be denied. Humanity had not returned to conquer. They had returned to exist, and existence had never been more defiant. Zalthlin exhaled, a gesture long unnecessary in his species, and muttered, almost to himself, "They are beyond us." And the Concorde, masters of countless systems, understood a truth they could not unlearn. The species they had once dismissed as small, chaotic, and insignificant had built something greater than any empire could ever enforce. The black halo pulsed quietly, a new galaxy fully alive, a monument to human persistence, intelligence, and endurance. The era of underestimation was over, and humanity's future was theirs alone.